In this video, I'm going to show you how I transformed this messy loft into a beautiful, calm space. We hardly ever use this area, but now it's my favorite spot for reading, listening to music, and just relaxing. I'll show you how I did it from start to finish. When we began renovating this abandoned house here in Japan 5 years ago, I'd always imagined this area as a kind of library loft and an all-purpose place to relax. I've always hated seeing the breaker box there, and over the years it accumulated stuff that we didn't know where else to put, and after we got solar panels, another breaker and inverter were added, making it even more unsightly. So now I'm going to turn it into a cozy nook complete with a bookcase, custom cabinet doors to hide the breaker boxes, and decor to complement the traditional Japanese architecture of our home. So I'm just going to clear all the stuff away from here so I can get started, and then I'll sort of measure up everything, the walls and so on. I'm pretty sure that wall over there, that corner there, is not perfectly 90 degrees, and that wall is not perfectly flat either. Oh, it's really hot up here actually. So you can see here, temperature is almost 30 degrees Celsius. 63% humidity, so we've got an air conditioner planned. Speaking of plans, here's what I'm aiming to do with the bookshelves. That down there is the floor air conditioner, similar to the one we have downstairs, but we probably won't get that installed for a while as we don't really need it until next summer. I also have an old Sonos speaker here, and I'll try making shaker style cabinet doors for the very first time. I'd been planning to finish this area off for so long that I actually bought the wood for this project over 4 years ago. It's been sitting in my shed all this time as it kept on being put off for other projects. But, as I explained to my wife, buying materials years before you need them is just a smart way to beat inflation. The wood is sugi, Japanese cedar. The boards are in pretty good condition. Some of them are slightly cupped. I do have a thickness planer that I'm going to use, but I don't want to take too much off just because I want to keep the boards as thick as possible. First I cut the boards to a rough length, slightly longer than I needed, as I'll cut them down to the correct size later. I recently got a used benchtop planer on Yahoo Auctions Japan. I used it briefly in my last project, but I really got it with this one in mind. I'm using it to get all the pieces to the same thickness, as well as smooth out the rough board and save myself a lot of sanding. I'll try to get it as flat as possible, but it doesn't need to be perfect. I don't want to lose too much thickness as they're already close to as thin as I want them. My plan is to divide the bookcase into 5 sections and assemble them outside before bringing them inside for the final assembly. Now that I've smoothed the boards and got them to the same thickness, I cut the shelves down to a more accurate length and width. Pretty much everything I've done in this video I learned by watching YouTube, but in this case, no pun intended, I couldn't find any videos on how to fit a large open-backed bookcase to a non-flat wall. I thought about a few different approaches, in the end none were the right one. I experimented with plywood templates that I could shape to the wall and then use them as guides to cut the final pieces, but I gave up on this idea as the wall was more or less fine vertically. The problem was horizontally, it was a lot more uneven. So I ended up just going ahead and making the shelves and working it out later. But this led to one big mistake, as you'll see, on top of all the little ones, of course. I'm going to join the shelves to the sides using stopped or blind dados. A stopped dado is a hidden slot that supports a shelf's weight without showing a gap at the front. You stop the groove short of the edge and notch the shelf corner to fit, giving you maximum strength with a clean look. To do this, I made a simple jig and I routed out the sides of the shelves in pairs so that the opposite side supports are perfectly aligned to each other. Well, in theory anyway. So now that's done, I just need to cut out the notches now on each of the shelves. Okay, so some of them weren't perfect, but I'll fix that up later. I'm going to be recessing the sides of the shelves into the floor. I'll explain why later in the video. So you might have noticed that in this video and my previous one, I've been wearing a dust mask. Even though I mostly work outside, there is still a lot of fine dust that hovers in the air when I'm working with the power tools, but all the masks that I've tried before always tended to fog up my safety glasses, making it hard to see what I was doing. So it came down to a choice between protecting my eyes or my lungs, and I chose my eyes. Coincidentally, earlier this year, a US-based company called Basecamp reached out to me to see if I wanted to try out their masks. Basecamp masks feature a 6-layer eAPI filter with 99.6% efficiency, providing CE certified protection. To prevent your glasses from fogging up, Basecamp has designed adjustable nose bridge straps, an exhalation valve, and optional foam strips, all of which can effectively prevent fogging. Instead of uncomfortable ear loops, the 3cm wide Velcro headband ensures a secure fit that stays comfortable all day, even with earplugs or headphones. Basecamp offers 4 different mask styles, with the main difference being the way you put them on. I'm using the M Pro model. These masks are reusable and can last for ages with proper maintenance. You can just change the filter and replace with a new one. The main shell is breathable and washable. I've been using the masks now for more than 6 months, and I've found them comfortable to wear even while wearing a cap, which is important to me as I often work under the hot Japanese sun. And importantly, there's no fogging up of my glasses while I'm working, and it certainly feels better not to be breathing in the sawdust. If you're interested in trying out the Basecamp masks, I put a link to their website in the description, and if you use the code below, you get 10% off. Note that if you use this code, I'll also get a small commission. They ship worldwide, including Japan. The side fit pretty well, so now it's time to start assembly. Now I need to check that all of the grooves for the shelves line up with each other, and they're pretty good. Not perfect, but it'll have to do. I'm using a combination of glue and screws to fix everything together. To fill in the gaps, I'm mixing sawdust with glue. On the next section, I need to make a little gap for the plug for the speaker to go through. There are 2 power points on this wall that are exactly where one of the shelf side supports needs to go, so I'm going to cut a couple of notches to go around them. Everything fits nicely, so I'm just going to glue it in place. Because the wall is not flat, I'm just going to scribe out the contour of the wall for this section and then shape it to fit. I mentioned earlier that I was recessing the sides of the shelves into the floor. I'm doing this to lock the units in place for a cleaner look without having to screw them in. Also, the floor is slightly uneven, especially on this grill, and not perfectly 90 degrees with the wall in some places, so I thought it would be easier to level the shelves with shims if necessary, rather than trying to cut the bottom of the shelf sides to the perfect height, angle and shape. Surprisingly, it's pretty much perfect up there, so I basically got to do a few more things and it'll be all finished. These holes are above the breaker box and the inverter to allow heat to rise and exit so that it doesn't get too hot in there. If I understood the Japanese regulations correctly, you are allowed to put a breaker box inside a cabinet as long as the cabinet is dedicated to the breaker box, i.e. there are no clothes or things like that in there, and there's adequate ventilation for heat to escape. Looks pretty good from far, however, it's far from good. So you can see that the top board is not flush with the shelf side supports. There's an overhang, which is not what I had planned, and that overhang is not consistent. It's at this point that I realized what I should have done. I should have made the top board first, fitted to the wall, then made the shelf side supports to match the width of the top, then the shelves to match the width of the sides, basically working from the top down. So if anyone watching this is making an open-backed bookcase on a non-flat wall, that is my advice for what it's worth. Now, of course, I could have taken it off and redone it, but at this point I've just decided to live with it. I couldn't wait to get this old Sonos Play 1 speaker off the floor where it had been for years and listen to my favourite royalty-free song.
You got the scars to prove it, of all the setbacks in your life. You don't know how to do it and how you're gonna stay alive. Is this the life you've chosen? Like every
That was my first time to try making dovetail joints. I thought it might be a good way to keep the bench top looking as clean as possible, just one piece of wood. I was given the router table by a local guy who didn't need it anymore and was looking to clear space, so I was more than happy to oblige. The bench is not really intended for sitting on, though it will be strong enough. I was wondering if it was even necessary, but in the end I thought it made the area feel more complete and made the whole unit look better integrated with the space. Now it was time to make the cabinet doors. I got given a whole lot of leftover Sugi cedar ceiling boards by a builder who didn't want them, so I thought these could work nicely as the panels of the cabinet doors. So I picked out two that I thought would look good together. I'd never made cabinet doors before, so I cut a couple of test pieces before cutting the final ones. Because the walls in that corner were not square, the opening to the cabinet was also not perfectly square, so I had to test fit the door and then adjust its size slightly so that there would be an even gap all the way around. I liked the panels just the way they were in terms of texture and natural aged colour, and didn't want to sand or apply finish to them, so I taped them up and applied finish to the frame only. I was pretty happy with how the door turned out. My original plan was to make one single door, however I soon realised that the low beam in front of the bookcase would block the door from opening fully, so I had to split the door into two, with the small door opening upwards instead of outwards. You know how they say, measure twice, cut once? Well, there's a good reason for that. I somehow managed to mismark my cut by 5mm. Since the frames for both the top and bottom doors are all cut from the same single board to keep the grain continuous, I couldn't just grab a new piece without ruining the match. I had to glue the off-cut back on. Very annoying that I'm still making these rookie errors after all these years. I actually made another mistake here, which is really annoying. I wonder if you can spot it. Well, the one that I'm thinking of, there are probably a few mistakes there. So we're reaching the home straight here, the bookcase is complete. Now all there's left to do is put some books in it. But there's only one problem. Now, to be honest, I actually haven't read any books for a long time. I don't think I've read one since coming to Japan 7 years ago. So we don't actually have that many to put in the shelf. I've got a few lying around. So without many books, I'm going to have to fill the shelves with accent pieces. I hit the local secondhand store and picked up these vases for a few hundred yen each. souvenirs I'd picked up along the way, and sorted through the kids' books to see if there's anything that they might still read or haven't read yet. I found a few things lying around the house and also raided my mother-in-law's house for bits and pieces. There I found a box of books and other items I'd forgotten I'd brought over from England. And even found stuff lying around outside. I picked up this broadleaf lady palm at my local home centre. It's a plant that is commonly seen in traditional Japanese spaces like hotels and tea houses. It's well known for its elegant architectural shape. I thought that it would suit this house nicely. It will hopefully work well here as it doesn't require that much light. These onigawara were originally from the roof of the main entrance, but when we had it renovated, they were identified as one of the causes for the build-up of leaves and water leaking into the roof. So we had to take them down. I made this simple little tray out of scrap wood to put in my whiskey station. I like to have the occasional glass. This bottle of Tasmanian single malt my dad brought me from Australia last time he visited. Maybe if this video gets a lot of views, I'll treat myself to a nice Japanese one. I also wanted to get a good quality Japanese whiskey glass, however they're pretty expensive. I found this multi-purpose glass made by Japanese craftsmen that will suit the aesthetic. I've put a link in the description if you want to find out more about it. I hit Yahoo secondhand auctions again, this time looking for a hengaku. A hengaku is a traditional Japanese horizontal plaque or signboard that hangs above entrances, gates or inside rooms, usually featuring beautiful calligraphy. I thought something like this might look pretty cool looming over the loft and kitchen area. I was pretty happy to land this in such good condition, especially at the price, even if shipping was double the cost of the actual product. I couldn't read the character on the very right, and neither could my wife or mother-in-law. But after searching with Google Lens, I found it possibly to be a stylized version of the character Ji for self. The hiragana A is derived from the kanji An, so I believe the reading of the kanji from right to left to be Ji An E Raku, meaning something like inner peace, eternal joy. But feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I felt the bookcase looked a bit unbalanced with the cabinet on the right side, so I thought a kakejiku hanging scroll might work on the left side. So again I went to Yahoo auctions and found this kakejiku of a camellia flower like what we have in our garden with the right dimensions to go in the space on the left. Now all I needed was some lighting to really add to the atmosphere. I got this smart light strip and after testing it out, made it a bit nicer by mounting it onto a bar. Finally we needed a floor lamp. I thought a Noguchi Isamu floor lamp would look really great, but again, much too expensive for me. So rather than buy a cheap knockoff, I decided to make my own lamp using wood I had lying around, inspired by the Japanese Shishi-odoshi. It's not quite finished, but I didn't have time to if I wanted to release this video before 2026. Because we're not going to get the air conditioner until sometime next year, I just put a few things into the gap there just to fill it up. I'm really happy with how it's turned out. As I said at the beginning, it's become one of my favourite spots in the house. In fact, I edited most of this video up there. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or comments down below, and I'll see you next time. A lot of work to make IKEA Kallax.